Hey, what's going on, guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Here in today's video, I want to talk about symmetrical chords and why I love them so much. So before I get into the lesson, I just want to talk about the elephant in the room. I know what you're all thinking. You're all wondering where I got this amazing shirt at. It says Zombie Hut on it. I'm sure everyone wants to buy one, you know? Fortunately, I don't sell these. My dad got this for me when he was in California about a year ago. Sacramento, California, and he visited a place called Zombie Hut, and he ate dinner there, and he said, hey, I want to get this t-shirt for my son. And I appreciate that my dad got me this beautiful t-shirt, but I don't sell them, so sorry. Just want to put that out there. Anyway, let's get into the lesson. All right, so before I talk about the symmetrical chords and what they are, and they're actually a lot easier than you may think. Don't let the term symmetrical scare you away. They're actually surprisingly easier than basic major and minor chords once you understand how they work. Before I explain to you what the symmetrical chords are, let me first show you an example of what we're trying to do here. So let me just play a very basic common chord progression in the key of C major, and let me point out the chord of focus. So this is the progression. That is tension. That's a G dominant 7 chord. That's going to be the chord that we're essentially going to be replacing in this video. But when I play that chord, everyone that is listening to this, pretty much everyone that's listening to this, is going to be expecting a next chord. So this is the tension. And this is what we're all waiting for. So tension, release. So what we're going to be doing with these symmetrical chords is essentially just adding the tension right before the release chord. So we're going to be replacing that G dominant 7 chord in this particular example with either augmented chords or fully diminished chords. So the augmented chord that we're talking about here in this video is just a simple 3-note chord, and it is just a note with another note that is a major third higher than the first note, and then another note that is another major third higher than that note. So if I wanted to play, say, a B augmented chord, I would start on the note B right here, and I would move up a major third. So a major third is 4 half steps. I know that's a bit confusing, but... And then the next note of the chord would be a major third higher than that. So again, 4 half steps. And then the next note would be 4 half steps higher than that, which is a major third. All right, so instead of playing it all on the same string, I could just play those same notes, which happen to be B, D sharp, and G. And then I can even include the high B string right here. So that's a B augmented chord. So if I just move that up, I can move that up to here, play the exact same thing. It's like the same shape, it's the same notes even, it's just the notes are rearranged. Instead of the lowest note being the note B, now the lowest note is the note D sharp. Again, I can move it up so that the lowest note is G. Again, I can move it up so that the lowest note is B. So that's going to be the augmented chord. All right, so you have your tension. Then you have your release. So it doesn't matter if I use this B augmented chord or a D sharp augmented chord. It's still going to resolve nicely to that C major chord. And then of course this will also work if you take this same shape right here and you slide it up 4 frets. So right there we're playing a G augmented chord. So the augmented type of tension is going to be slightly different than that of the dominant chord type of tension. So dominant chord type of tension or augmented chord tension. All right, so now let's talk about fully diminished chords. So fully diminished chords are 4-note chords. These are also known as diminished 7th chords. Basically what they are is just stacked minor thirds. So we previously just looked at augmented chords, which are stacked major thirds. So stacked minor thirds makes a fully diminished chord. So we're going to start on this note B right here. That's going to be the first note of the fully diminished chord that we're going to use as our tension chord. And then we're going to move up by a minor third. A minor third is just 3 frets or 3 half steps. Whereas previously we looked at a major third, which was 4 half steps or 4 frets. Now it's 3 half steps or 3 frets. So here's our first note. Up 3 frets, that's the note D. Up 3 frets, that's the note F. Up 3 frets, that's the note G sharp. Up 3 frets, you're at the note B again. So the chord shape we're going to use for this lesson here, and there's multiple ways to play a fully diminished chord. I just like to use this shape right here. I find this the easiest to play. These fully diminished chords, no shape really is super easy to play, but this is the one that I just find to be the easiest for me. So this is what it's going to sound like. So this is a B fully diminished chord. And then the exact same chord, if you move this up to here, which is 3 half steps higher or a minor third higher, this is the exact same chord. It's the same 4 notes, it's just the notes are rearranged. Move it up 3 frets again. 3 frets again. 3 frets again, you're back at the starting chord. Alright, so it all provides the same type of tension. So if I start here, resolve. Or if I start here, and then I move to here, resolve. Or I could do this. Alright, so it doesn't matter which one I use. I could use B fully diminished, I could use D fully diminished, I could use F fully diminished, or I could use G sharp fully diminished. All 4 of those chords are equivalent to each other. They're exactly the same 4 notes, so they're all going to function the exact same way. They all provide that outside, like kind of creepy tension sound to it, and they all resolve back to that same chord, that C major chord. So next I want to give you some examples of resolving to a minor chord. We just looked at resolving to a major chord, so I want to do some examples of resolving to a minor chord. But before I do that, I just want to explain to you why this is, in my opinion, a lot simpler than major chords, minor chords, or dominant 7th chords, or whatever. There's 12 major chords, there's 12 minor chords, there's 12 dominant 7th chords. So if I wanted to know which dominant 7th chord was the correct one to place right before a C major chord, I have 1 in 12 chords to guess from. The correct answer is G dominant 7. A dominant 7 chord, it doesn't have that same symmetrical property. There's 12 possible dominant chords to choose from, one of which would be the correct answer that you would use to place right before a C major chord. When it comes to augmented chords, there's only 4 to choose from, not 12. When it comes to the fully diminished chords, there's only 3 to choose from, not 12. So if I wanted to figure out which augmented chord to place right before a C major chord, the reason I chose the B augmented chord is just because the note B is right before the note C, and it leads to C. So B augmented, C major. That's why I chose that one. But that's one of 3 potential correct answers. If I want to go the fully diminished chord route and I want to place a fully diminished chord, the tension chord, right before a C major chord, I have 4 chords to choose from as opposed to just 1. So again, I used the B diminished chord because B is 1 less than C. So B fully diminished right here. That's your tension. Here's your resolution. So B fully diminished is exactly the same as D fully diminished, which is exactly the same as F fully diminished, which is exactly the same as the G sharp fully diminished chord. So if my goal is to place a diminished chord as my tension chord right before a C major chord, I have 4 possible options as opposed to just 1. When it comes to these symmetrical chords, it just simply gives you more options. Alright, so let's now look at resolving to a minor chord. So I'm going to use the same key signature that I was in previously, but instead of resolving to the C major chord, I'm now going to resolve to an A minor chord. So let's just start off with this chord progression. Alright, so if I wanted to throw a dominant chord right before that A minor chord just to add that tension, that super strong tension that really wants to move to something, and that something being the A minor chord, I have a 1 in 12 chance of choosing the correct dominant chord. So you can always tell what the correct dominant chord is by just looking at the chord that's a fifth above the chord that you're moving to. You can use your circle of fifths to do this. So what's a fifth above A? A fifth above A is E. So if I wanted to play an E dominant 7th chord, that would sound very, very tensiony, and that will lead me back to that A minor chord. So let's try that. So lots of tension, resolution. Tension, resolution. Alright, so again, if I go the dominant chord route, I have 1 in 12 possible chords for which to choose from, and one of them is the correct answer. If I wanted to throw an augmented chord in there, I only have 1 in 4 possible options to choose from. If I wanted to throw a fully diminished chord in there, I only have 1 of 3 possible options to choose from. So the augmented chord and the diminished chord I'm going to use for this example is going to be the one that contains the note G sharp in it. Why do I care about that note G sharp? Well, that's because that's 1 half step lower than the note A. So that note G sharp is found in the E dominant 7th chord. That's why that E dominant 7th chord, it creates that tension that we're looking for. There's the G sharp right there, and then it wants to move to the A. So I'm going to choose my augmented chords and or fully diminished chords based on the one that contains that G sharp note in there. So if I wanted to go the augmented route, let's see what my 3 possible options are. So G sharp augmented is one of the possible options. So move up 4 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4. So C augmented is another possible option. Move up 4 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4. E augmented is another possible option. So let's try a C augmented chord and then see how that leads back to an A minor chord. Alright, so let's try the next one. Let's try an E augmented chord. Let's try a G sharp augmented chord. So let's now try to do the fully diminished example, which now I have 4 possible options for which will work. So the first one will be a G sharp fully diminished chord. The next one will be a B fully diminished chord. The next one will be a D fully diminished chord. The next one will be an F fully diminished chord. So any of those 4 options will work. So let's see, G sharp, B. I'm going to start with the B just because that's right here. All right, so I like this shape for my fully diminished chords. So here's a B fully diminished chord. All right, that sounded pretty cool. And of course, this tension is equivalent to this tension. And then you can go all the way up to the G sharp if you want. Alright, so you see how this is working? So these chords, they function as a good second to last chord right before the chord that you're resolving to. And then when you use augmented chords, you have, only 4 to choose from. When you use fully diminished chords, you only have 3 to choose from. That's the beauty of these symmetrical chords. So I hope you guys liked this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.